Hello, and welcome to another edition of U.S.-Japan Council's Japanese Americans and Japan Legacies video series. I'm Deborah Nakatomi. Diane Fukami and I are your hosts for this series of dialogues highlighting the lives and journeys of prominent Japanese American leaders, each of them pioneers in developing the U.S.-Japan relationship. Through their stories, we will learn about the role of Japanese Americans in strengthening U.S.-Japan relations in ways which their experiences with Japan have contributed to their Japanese American identity and our community. We'd like to thank the U.S.-Japan Council for providing this opportunity to share their unique and powerful stories. We'd also like to thank our friends at Japan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs for their invaluable support of this program and of Japanese American leaders to nurture the U.S.-Japan relationship. Today, we are very excited to welcome Tracey Doi, Chief Financial Officer and Group Vice President for Toyota Motors North America. Tracey, we are so excited to share your story today.
I am thrilled to be here, Deborah, Diane. Thank you so much.
Nice to see you. Great to be spending this time with you. So let's start from the beginning. Let's start with your early life. Tell us about your life in Southern California, born and raised.
Well, first of all, I just want to thank the U.S.-Japan Council and the Ministry for supporting this program because I think it's great to pull people together and get to know one another a little bit better. So I grew up in Southern California. First started off in Fullerton, Orange County. My mom and dad met at SC and UCLA. They've got a blended family there. And we're in LA after the war. Both of them were interned one in Poston. My dad was in Poston, my mom was in Gila River. And my dad, after he'd gone through the GI Bill and graduated SC as a chemical engineer, they settled in Fullerton because his career was with Atlantic Richfield at the time, which ended up being ARCO and later BP. So we were there for up till my second grade. And then he was transferred to Texas. So actually, it's ironic, Richardson, Texas, which is very close to where I live now in Plano, Texas. But who would have guessed? So we were there for only a year before he was transferred back to Los Angeles. And we spent the rest of really my elementary and high school in Torrance, California.
So we have some family pictures of you. Let's show one when in your childhood.
So this is with my older sister, Leslie, and my grandma and my parents. And my mom, I didn't mention her, is an educator and really dedicated her life for high school teaching and then later writing curriculum for the state of California.
I love the twin dresses. Didn't we all wear them?
Well, and my mom is a gifted seamstress, so she would make a lot of our outfits. And of course, then I would get to wear the hand-me-down as well. So we have a lot of twinsy outfits through the years.
Talk a little bit about those early days in Torrance and your family, because I understand you have a pretty close family relationship with everybody.
Well, very fortunate to grow up with, I'm one of 14 cousins on one side and 17 on the other. And both sides of the family, majority lived right there in Southern California. And in fact, my mom's sister with 5 boys lived right down the street. And then my grandparents were very close by. And this is a photo of my grandpa, who I was extremely close with. I'm sitting on his lap, and my sister. He would come by after school and hear how the day went, and we would share a glass of chocolate milk.
Oh, that's
he was
so
also
sweet.
the one that encouraged us to go to Japanese school and would drive us every Saturday to Gardena Buddhist to take classes.
Well, for people that don't know Southern California well, talk about what life is like in Torrance and Gardena in the South Bay portion of this region. What was life like? Because there's a really large Japanese American population here.
There is. You know, it's ironic though, because at Torrance High, there was not as many. So there was a small group of Japanese American families, and I was related to a lot of them. I grew up with my twin cousins, we're the same age, and Mitchell and Michael, we had class together from second grade all the way through high school. And then Michael and I were both at UCLA together. But the families that did know each other were definitely very close. And then later on, what I realized as we became a basketball family, there is a large population, Deborah, for sure, that congregate together and enjoy many, mostly around food, right? Athletics and food.
No, that was a picture of you at Torrance High.
It was in high school.
And you know, I know you're too modest to say, but you were student body president at Torrance High, weren't you?
Well, I enjoyed being involved. I like to pull together events, and that eventually got to that position, which was probably I didn't realize it at the time, but probably a way to get started with leadership.
Yeah,
And then
there's
to
a
talk
little
about
common theme here that's going to be developing throughout.
talk a little bit about your next step after Torrance High.
Well, I did go to UCLA, so I enjoyed that experience very much. I was lived in the dorms, made friends there. I joined one of the Asian sororities there, and I really had different pockets of friends. I was a business econ major, so I had friends through the accounting society, friends that I met through the dorms and then through the sorority. And I think it helped just to have a balance. And I think that was something where I treasured those friendships still.
And what were you studying at UCLA? You said business econ. So that was, you knew from early on that that's sort of the direction you wanted to head in?
Well, I actually wasn't sure. I took econ, actually didn't like econ. I wasn't very good at it. They introduced guns and butter, and it made no sense. It makes much more sense to me now. But I wasn't sure if I wanted to do business, or actually I looked at public health and thought that wanted to do something where I'd be giving back to people in some way or form or fashion. But I'm not the best at being exposed to anything with blood. So I'm a fainter. I'm the type who just keels over. So I learned that and instead decided that it's better to give back, maybe by fundraising.
You talked a little bit about special friends and meeting all kinds of friends. And we understand you met a very special friend at UCLA. And here's a photo that we're going to show. Tell us a little bit about this special friend you met at UCLA.
Well, actually, Mark went to SC. So I met him because my roommate was dating his roommate. We got married, they didn't, but we're still together. And we laugh because you know how they have those flags that say, do they say house divided? SC and UCLA. And here my parents also had that same type of marriage. So very blessed. Mark and I met when I was 19, and here we are still together. And he's just a fabulous partner and best friend.
So was that really love at first sight? You knew that he was the one at 19?
Well, I think we've grown together, right? And we were young back then, but we've journeyed together, and I think it's nice to share the same passion for community together. And certainly a lot is focused around family.
So take us through your career now. You graduate from college, and then what?
So I started off in public accounting. UCLA's program was more liberal arts, and it wasn't as if there was a concentration in accounting, but I thought that that'd be a great career to start off with. And my intention was to go back to school and maybe do marketing or something else. The program was fabulous. I mean, great training. It wasn't just about technical skills, very much focused on how do you support your customers, writing skills, presentation, and you get an assortment of business cases. I was in the small business division, and so I was really helping support companies that were probably in the fledgling years. And that included a computer company. They were actually the prelude. It was Tandem Computers. They produced hard drives back then. It was before the floppy was developed. So I'm dating myself. I also had a nonprofit company, and that's actually where I started volunteering. I had a agricultural company that had an assortment of, they did raisins, they had dried nuts and candy, got to see how candy was made. I don't know, it's just really a wonderful way to get exposure in the real world at a very young age.
As your career was launching, I was really impressed at the multi-sector experience you had in your early years of your career. You had a chance to work in a lot of different sectors and get some really varied experience. Tell us about that.
I would say, Deborah, that was by chance, not necessarily planned. So I was in public accounting for 4 years, and it's typical either you do a career after you get your CPA and stay with the firm, or you go out into private. So I first went into healthcare and was with an HMO. HMOs were just getting launched back then. They'd done a couple acquisitions. They needed somebody to help them in their financial reporting. And I was with them for a couple of years, but candidly, they were having some management difficulties, and I left them before they went bankrupt. So then I thought, well, I'm in LA and I'm single, and everybody wants to be in Hollywood, right? So I went to an entertainment company and quickly learned that everybody there is a wannabe actor, actress, of which I am not. I mean, the people were great singers, and they had an aspiring to do something else. So it wasn't a culture fit, really wasn't. So I left there after a short time, and then I was with Gear for 7 years, and that was a longer stint. And I was in a company that designed, developed, manufactured, imported, exported footwear for children mostly, they're adults as well, to 100 countries. And I was fortunate to work for somebody, Bill Benford, who believed in giving people a stretch assignment. So I had a multitude of responsibilities. I was eventually controller, but I had responsibility as well for import and duties, and working closer with the sales team on developing incentive programs. It was a broad brush, and I was grateful for that.
And that was a time when that company was just going gangbusters. It was a really popular fashion footwear brand, and you were there during kind of its heyday, right?
We were the darling of Wall Street at that time. We're about $1
Yeah.
billion in sales. That's a lot of shoes. And our claim to fame were these lighted kid shoes. So when the kids put their foot down, the heel would light up. And that was pretty cool.
It was a big deal at that time. So I remembered when we spoke, you talked about the role of some mentors who saw talent in you. And right around that time, I think was when you mentioned one of those mentors who kind of saw you and kind of started to really lift you up. Talk to us about that experience.
So I had moved over to AT&T Wireless, and Hank Bondi was our general manager and president. And Hank grew up in IBM, which is a company that really fosters leadership programs. And he invested in the second tier of leadership. So all the directors, we weren't VPs yet. And he spent 3 days every quarter, which is a lot of time, took us off site, brought in a leadership team who coached us and gave us the 360 review and helped me better understand that technical skills were not going to help me as I got to the next stage of my career. He also helped us appreciate each other's strengths and broke down the silos across the organization. So it wasn't like accounting, finance were off to the side. We were working closely with engineering and with sales. That was eye-opening. So I really credit Hank for helping me recognize and appreciate there was more to leading. There was a difference between managing tactical work and strategically leading.
Yeah, and seeing certain talents that you had, and he sounded like he was a real developer of people, right? He
Mhm.
took the time to do that. So after AT&T, you did make your way to Toyota, right? How did that happen between AT&T and Toyota, and what was that pathway?
Well, at early on, I'm trying to think, I guess it was when I was at LA Gear. I was recruited to the board for March of Dimes, and it was right after our son Kevin was born. And Fred Clayton, who is an executive recruiter, pulled me in because I think they were looking for diversity on their boards and they were looking for moms. And March of Dimes, if you're not familiar, for those that might not be familiar, the whole goal is to try to save babies and have them have a healthy life. So I volunteered on that board, and Fred pulled me aside one day and said, I see you in action as a volunteer. We haven't talked about your professional career. I've got this opportunity in the South Bay with a large company, and maybe you would be interested. And at that point, I was commuting 45 minutes to AT&T. And we know with LA traffic, it isn't always 45 minutes. So my ears definitely perked up. And we had lunch, and I looked at the job profile and I thought, I really think I could make a difference here. So I was fortunate enough to join 21 years ago at Toyota.
Yeah. You've had such a long career at Toyota, and it's not an industry that is traditionally known to be a place where women succeed and really, climb and flourish. So, because it's not a traditional place, what was that like for you? And what were some of your early experiences when you got there? Tell us what we're looking at here. When was that shot?
I was pretty early on in my career at Toyota, and it's actually at our headquarters in Torrance at the time. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I was recruited, I was the VP controller for our sales arm. And when I first joined, my responsibilities were, really focused on pulling together the team, helping with trying to help with the efficiency play and systems and processes. But I was really getting familiar with the industry itself. I was so fortunate to have a couple mentors there in Barbara Cooper, who is the CIO, and Diane Ogilvy, who is the general counsel. And then I joined in finance. And the two of them really shepherded me through. It was very helpful to have two strong women that watched out for me. So a bit of a sisterhood. And I still keep in
Mm-hmm.
contact with them and treasure their friendship. I also, though, had some very helpful men to teach me the business. Dave Ellingworth was the founder of Lexus, and I think he really helped me with who's who and what's what. Recognizing that it's always helpful to have somebody fill in those blind spots and be willing to invest.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm proud now to be able to share that what was a small women's executive group that fit around the dining room table of Diane Ogilvy, we'd get together once a quarter and have dinner, has now expanded tremendously across sales, manufacturing, R&D. So later in the month, we're going to have our annual Toyota Women's Conference, which will be global because we'll have representatives from Japan and South America and Europe, and we'll have 1,000 attendees that will include our high potential women. So we've made progress. We've definitely made
That's a great story of progress and success. That's really great. It's wonderful to hear that. So I have a question that I was dying to ask you. You have this very impressive title, CFO, Vice President, Accounting and Finance. And I heard a rumor at some point that you have a team of over 400 people. And my question is, what does a CFO and VP do at that level? Like, what is your job like? Tell us a little bit about what you do in your work. I see you speaking a lot. I see you're a great representative for the company. You're on a lot of panels externally. but I know that that's 10% of your work and 90% of it is managing this enormous operation. So tell us a little bit about what you do in kind of lay terms so we can understand.
I'm really blessed to have a job that challenges me and definitely keeps me engaged. And part of my group is corporate strategy. And that group is really focused on midterm strategy, really thinking through the footprint of our manufacturing operations and product that will help us grow. So that's one element, is thinking mid to long term, you know. And then we look at the finance team, which is trying to evaluate really what are our business drivers that are going to help us grow on the revenue side, and where do we need to invest from capital and people. And that could be short to 5 years out. And then our accounting team is really trying to make sure that we are pulling together the financials and meeting compliance. And that could be from a tax and regulatory perspective. And then I've got the analytics group, which are really trying to be side by side with our business partners to make better business decisions. And that could be what is the mix of product that will help lift us for environmental, which mix of product actually makes more money, where are our growth segments from a customer base. It's a mix. And I'm very, very talented team that are within our 14 manufacturing plants, as well as in Plano, Texas.
Gosh, Tracey, I just can't believe all the different hats and the facets of your job. It's amazing that you have time to talk to us, for God's sakes.
No, but again, I've got a really talented team and they're empowered to do a lot. And I think that that's really for all of us. We all only have 24 hours in the day, right? So it's a lot to do with prioritization and figuring out where do I need to spend the attention.
You know, you gave a lot of credit early in your career to the two women who you mentioned. You know, what were the lessons that you learned from them that you continue to execute and you continue to implement today?
So one is that, and of course, we all fill out our skill set at different times and different places. And so it doesn't always go in a neat order, but it does go with the assumption that you've got the basic competencies of technical skills that are required for whatever your focus is, right? So if it's accounting and finance, that's first building it out. But I think one takeaway for sure is strengthening soft skills is very important, both verbal, presentation, written, connecting with people, building those relationships, and anticipating how you can pull teams together. Another is, this one I'll credit to Hank Bondi, surround yourself with talent. We all grow so much more if we are surrounded by talent that complements each other and kind of pushes us to a different level. And that's something where I probably spend more time than I would have thought of thinking about what are the skill sets that we need to grow for the future and who are the right people to move around to get that experience, but also to help the company propel to a different level. So I think when I talk about surrounding myself with talent, I hadn't heard this term until later. It was actually our University of Toyota that coined this term of building a personal board of directors. But I think that that is something I've learned. And that board could be not only people that help me professionally, but also personally. So Mark, my husband's on my board, my mom's on my board, my sister is on my board. The close friends that know what's important to me to balance my life and make good choices. Parents that have kids that are older than mine that knew what the college game was all about. And then women and men that help me now. I've got somebody that knows manufacturing extremely well, Norm Buffuno. our offices are right across the hall from each other. And I didn't grow up in manufacturing. I absorbed that responsibility for finance later. So I can go to him if I don't understand the acronym, or if I'm not sure what the key pressure point is that I should be focused on. That was a huge lesson to me, is it's not just your direct boss and it's not just your peer group. It's really surrounding yourself with all facets of your life. And I try to share with people, it's drawing those circles of your family, maybe it's your faith and your community, and then your professional.
I'm going to embarrass you for a moment. You've been recognized by your peers in the industry. You've been recognized 3 times by Automotive News as one of its top 100 leading women in North America. You've been recognized by so many different people. Your situation, unlike some of the other people we've interviewed in this series, you're a very successful woman in primarily a male-dominated industry. And headquarters initially, or product was sponsored from Japan, right? Toyota Motor. Talk a little bit about succeeding in that kind of situation.
Well, I think sometimes the recognition, though, it isn't about me. It's about the team. It's about the company. It's a blend. So I think I really feel like I am representing the team, and that's the part I would try to share with you, that especially if it's like recognizing from a CFO role, I'm representing my whole team, because I certainly don't do it by myself. We're fortunate. I'm really blessed to be with a company that makes a fabulous product. I'm so proud of our brands. When you talk about Toyota and Lexus, everybody has this image of a fabulous vehicle, and that we're morphing to a mobility company that is giving back to the society in so many different ways, taking that technology to personal mobility. And so, I don't know, Diane, and I think it's also a company that our 2 pillars of values are respect for people and continuous improvement. So doing the right thing for society just naturally fits in to the value set of the company. And continuous improvement, I mean, we all strive, and that's such a Japanese trait, right? We're never going to say we're the best. We're always looking for something that's better. That helps too. And the company really supports my involvement in the community for all of our team members. So sometimes that recognition is tied to just giving back and doing things that I love to do.
It sounds like there's been a very nice alignment of your personal values and the company values. And I know how important that is, because you spend so much of your time in the community giving back in voluntary kinds of roles. So talk a little bit more about some of those compatible values, both as a Japanese American, but also working in a Japanese company, and how that is maybe informed some of the choices that you've made in terms of your leadership and what you're doing in the community. You just seem to have this real kind of compatible areas of interest and spheres of interest that just seem to be such good fits with each other.
Well, it's true. It really is, because I think that the reason I've been with the company, I certainly didn't think I'd be with the company 20 plus years, because I remember when I talked with HR and I got the first new team member handbook, they explained the retirement program, and I asked, is it portable? And she says, are you planning to leave us? And I'm like, well, I just don't know. I'm going to retire from the company, because I had moved around so much before then. It is the reason I've stayed so long, is because my value set has aligned with the company, and I'm able to bring my true self, my authentic self, to work every day. And that's important, and to be passionate about what I'm doing. And that picture was with Millie Marshall, who is one of our plant presidents at our manufacturing plant. And continuous improvement was, and Kaizen were the kanjis that were behind it. It's very tangible on the plant floor to see something where you could be doing it better. We measure the time frame it takes to walk across from one step to another. And if there is extra steps, that's deemed muda, it's waste, it's something we can improve upon. Well, you could take that logic in process improvement. If both of you are producers, if it takes a long time to review something and edit it, and you could do it in a faster way, you can Kaizen that. You can make a better product and a better process. That's something that I believe in, right? Same with respect for people, always treating people how you would want to be treated. It makes it easy to be at a company when those things align.
What other Toyota life lessons have you heard? And I'm specifically speaking about Genshigen Butsu.
Oh.
So talk a little bit about that.
So Genchi Genbutsu is go and see. And it's a belief that you should be on the shop floor and not just take somebody's word for it. And it's been fabulous for me to be part of the manufacturing team now, to be able to, so this is Brian Crennock and Kevin Vocal. We're probably at the Texas plant because Kevin's the president of our Texas plant in San Antonio. And it's not enough for me just to look at the numbers to say, oh, the new Tundra launched and this is what the cost of the vehicle is and this is where the improvement is. I go and I see. I physically go visit the plant, visit it before a product is launched, see it after it's launched. That's a principle of go with your own eyes. And of course, when you talk to the team member that is handling, let's say for the new Sienna, we have a new resin back door and it's a light weighting material that's different to use. It makes a big difference if I physically go see what happened and either we had an unexpected variance that's better than what we thought or something that didn't go as well as we thought, but I saw it with my own eyes.
You know, you talked a little bit earlier about Toyota's flexibility and willingness to adapt and look at other models and other things. Be a little more specific. Tell us about the online car loan application.
So we are launching SmartPath and Monogram. SmartPath is for Toyota and Lexus has Monogram. And beyond online application for credit, what it is ability to recognize the fact that our consumers are shopping by looking at their iPhone, their iPad, their computer. They saw something on a commercial, all sorts of feeds that are coming through. And if you log into one of our websites and you agree to be registered as a guest, when you come into our dealership, you could have already applied for the application for your credit. You could have already said, Diane, what do I see you in? One of our new IS vehicles with F Sport, and it's a little fun, sporty car, right? All those features could have already been set up so that when the salesperson greets you, they can already say, we can have you test drive this vehicle. And if you chose, certainly under this pandemic, to have it be a contactless experience, you could go to the point of just saying, we'll drop it off at your door and we'll leave the keys on the front seat and call you and text you from the front door and say, please enjoy. So we've
Holy cow.
rapidly moved
amazing.
through digitization through this pandemic. We were already rolling all these features out, but we have very much really had all of our dealers try to embrace this faster, knowing that I don't think we'll go back, right? We will always have the dealer in the buying process, but more of it will be done electronically. And that makes it easier for both the customer and the dealer.
Tracey, this is a bit of a tough question, but you know, a lot of times when you get ideas at work or an extraneous source, you try to figure out how to incorporate that into your own life, into your own household. Has that happened to you?
I don't know. I laugh. There's a group that we have within the company. They take Kaizen to the nth degree. They are the experts. And it's kind of a joke because their family members typically tell them, okay, you can turn it off. You don't need to tell me how to reorganize everything in my own home. I don't know. I think that life merges together sometimes. But if you saw my desk right now on the side, I'm not the most organized that way.
So Tracy, you carry yourself with such humility, and you always kind of deflect, and it's not about you so much. You've done it a few times already in this interview. So as you reflect on your time at Toyota, I'm really kind of curious. You must have some pride points, some things that you feel when you reflect on just really radiate for you as things that you feel really good about. What are some examples of those pride points that you have, things that you are really proud of in your work and in your career?
Well, I am super proud of the team. And there was a challenging point when Toyota made the decision that we were going to merge our manufacturing and our sales arm and move from Kentucky and Torrance to Plano, Texas. And lifting everybody up was the right thing to do because I'll tell you, getting through this pandemic would have been super hard if we were not in one location. It's better for our customers. But it was a difficult leadership moment, right, to get through of understanding what each team member's situation was and what made sense for them and their families. And so I am proud of the fact that we really tried to watch out for each individual and their families, whether they decided to stay, we helped them get new jobs, or whether they decided to move. And as we acclimated and hired another 1,000 people in Texas, there's about 5,000 team members there, and welcome new people in and then bring them into the culture and not have them feel like it was only Toyota's culture. We could augment that and grow that. And I think because the team is engaged, it has helped us get through this pandemic a lot easier. So I am proud of seeing that the group prosper and grow through that.
How long was that process? Because we all recall when it was announced that there would be a relocation, and it felt like it was years.
It was over a
3 years?
2-year period. And I don't think that's typical, but it is a respect for people, because rather than just announcing it and saying everybody will move in 30 days, we would have the conversation of, okay, well, what makes sense for you? For us, our daughter was a sophomore in high school. I commuted for 2 years and then we moved. So it really was the flexibility of allowing folks to make sense for what made sense for them.
It was very important. So here's a question for you. There are many younger people that are listening, many that you know, ELP and younger professionals. And there's always curiosity about professional challenge, about really hard times when you've been professionally challenged or had some difficult decisions. So are you able to reflect with us a time when you've been challenged, kind of a hard time, and kind of how you overcame it, what you had to muster to kind of get back up or push through whatever barrier or challenge was in front of you?
There's a lot of those, but maybe a recent one is this pandemic. So for the safety of our team members, it's understandable that we closed our plants and we temporarily furloughed we closed down our plant operations. I'm really proud of the fact that we didn't lay anybody off, and we have 32,000 team members that work in our 14 plants. But if we're not producing or selling any vehicles, there is no cash coming in. So that was pretty stressful. I had not had that experience as a CFO. Certainly we've had our challenges in the past where after 9/11, that was tough, but This was extreme. So I was dialing for dollars and trying to talk to my friends, all my colleagues, my peers, to make sure that there was a clear understanding of the seriousness of the situation and how they could contribute. So the good news is everybody rallied, and we all, communication and transparency was better than ever, even though we were all virtual. Because at the same time we were going through this crisis, within 72 hours, we all switched to working virtually. So that was not an easy time. But I would say the silver lining is that we are a stronger team because we came through it. And we are fortunate as an auto industry that demand came back faster than what we had expected. My heart goes out to those that are in hospitality or in other industries, restaurants that are struggling still, small businesses that are struggling still. But yeah, for the younger people, I would say if you've got strong working relationships and you have built that trust and you have that in advance of a crisis, makes a world of difference. I think the other part I'd say is knowing what form of communication is going to be the most effective. And certainly when it's a critical time, I really emphasize now in this virtual world, cameras on. Let's have a conversation. It's face to face. Makes a big difference.
That's really good
Yes.
advice.
Switching gears for a moment, it seems that philanthropy and giving back are such key values in your life. Talk about that, and let's start with the March of Dimes, because that was one of the earliest things that you were intensely a part of, and also helped lead you to Toyota.
Right. So I got involved with March of Dimes early on and was recruited, no surprise, to be the treasurer of the board in LA. And I did that for a while, but then I started to get involved with the fundraising aspect of it. And when you're working on it, because I want to do something different than what I did day to day. And what I found this was really memorable. Dick Kleinert was the board chair at the time. And he said, in nonprofit, it's very clear. If there is no money, there is no mission. No money, no mission. So just help people understand what your mission is, and then people will give. So that was a really good fundraising lesson at the beginning. So anybody on our Christmas list got a letter, and I would get preemie diapers and mail it to them. And a preemie diaper is the size of like a Post-it. It's tiny. And if you could say, can you think of anybody in your life that might have started off as a preemie? And wouldn't you like to see them be healthy and born healthy? Or I would get one of those little fake wedding rings, and that would be the size of a newborn's arm. That's how tiny it would be. And wouldn't we all want all babies to be born healthy? So it was really easy to fundraise, but that's how I got involved.
Oh, Tracy, you're good. I already feel like writing the check. All right, and then now moving towards the Japanese American community, you've been involved with the Japanese American National Museum for a long time. How did that happen? And then segue out of that, because that brings you to USJC eventually.
Well, no surprise, our dear Irene Hirano had asked me to be part of the dinner committee, the gala committee at the beginning. So I volunteered to support that early on, and eventually co-chaired that gala with Jane Kanamori for a couple of years, and joined the board after being on the gala committee. And it was easy to get Toyota involved, because when I'm trying to think what the sequence was, but anyhow, Toyota has been involved with the museum since the doors opened. And the tie-in with our Lexus Opportunity Drawing, I credit to Carol Komatska, who was fundraising at the time. And she called me and she said, I really think it'd be great if you guys could donate a car and we could use it as an opportunity drawing. And we're not a, we're not a low end brand. Janum is Lexus. So she didn't even finish her sentence. She just said right away, we want to get a Lexus. So that was easy to get involved for sure. And then I was super blessed to be part of the Japanese American leadership delegation. I thank the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Japan Foundation for that experience. It was a once in a lifetime experience that I will treasure forever. And now I'm part of a community of Deborah, Diane, there's probably 200 plus of us that have gone through the program as part of the delegation. And the USJC was in the infancy during that time frame. And Irene was leading that activity then and opened the doors to so many of us of what the importance is of US-Japan relationships. And I call this our sisterhood. Wendy Shiba, Mani Miyashita, Judy Sakaki, who is not in that picture. We were in Japan, and there were 13 of us in 2010. And we stay in touch, and we try to make it to all of the conferences. Here we are with Irene, and that was during our trip. I'm proud to say that there were 7 women and 6 men on that trip, and strong personalities, but I love them all. And we are the brothers and sisters that stay together and really stay connected and support each other professionally, personally, and in the community.
So Tracy, that
talk
was
about
2010, right?
Right.
And 2010 was the year that USJC began. It was founded in that very same year, and you were very much a part of the very earliest stages of USJC. So tell us about that, because it didn't take long for you to get tapped to also join USJC in a leadership role.
Well, I think after going through such a memorable trip and recognizing that Japanese Americans really can play a significant part in strengthening the bridge to Japan. And when I think of other Asian communities that probably have more recent immigrants from Korea and for China, they have a stronger tie to their home country. And maybe the difference for Japan is, we have World War II and our parents being interned, and they were encouraged to be more Americanized, that I think that there was a break, if you will. And I'm 4th generation on my mom's side, 3rd generation on my dad's. Even though I went to Japanese school, I have very little Japanese language capabilities. So USJC was just like this dawning of indoctrination in our culture, a tie-in to the government affairs, an appreciation for the economy and the challenges and the demographics, and then the parallels. That's the other part of it, is I think recognizing and appreciating the parallels. And then I'm so blessed to be with Toyota that I can see it on both sides, because I do travel for work to Japan. So there's a lot of opportunity for us to continue to grow and strengthen USJC.
So we couldn't leave this conversation with you without talking about leadership, because as much as you have accomplished as a leader yourself, I think one of the areas that you are best known for is your mentorship, creating opportunities for other women, and the leadership that you bring to other organizations in creating opportunities for women on boards, creating leadership skills building for women within your own company. I know you've been a real champion of that. So talk to us a bit about what drives that. I know that you're a real believer in systems change, and we'd love to hear kind of what drives. Tell us what we're looking at here.
Well, this is Charmaine Tang and Tir Suzuki and we are leading the Dallas activity for women on boards. And 50-50 women on boards is about trying to reach gender parity on corporate boards. because our voices need to be heard in the boardroom, influencing corporate America. And we got a kick out of the fact that the 3 co-chairs were Asian, but we've made an impact. This year, we were the top performing state for women on boards, and we really are looking to try to have not only gender diversity, but people of color. And to your other question, though, about trying to help support women, I think it's just a point in my career, right? The kids have launched, and Mark and I are able to spend more time on the community. We've tried to do our giving as a family, but also a giving of our time as a family, but also trying to look at, how can we help the next generation? So that it's been easy, both internally and externally, to be able to do that. I'm having a lot of fun. I was hesitant, I'll be frank, with the move to Texas, was unsure, but I've been fortunate that I've been engaged with a group of fabulous women. This is a picture of Orchid Giving Circle, which is tied to the Texas Women's Foundation. And our intention is to give back to the Asian community. And over the last 5 years, we've raised $800,000 and given grants to the arts, domestic violence, social justice, leadership development, education, senior programs. And we're going to break 1 million this year. I know we will. And it's fun together, right? We're a sisterhood that have fun and enjoy each other, but then could give back for a cause.
Well, we thought it particularly interesting that you had the orchids behind you. So
There's
they're
always
with you, aren't they?
And right before this call, you were also with your orchid sisters, planning and plotting ahead for some of the strategies that lie ahead. So you don't rest very much, but really thank you for all that you do. And there are women leaders who lead and who achieve much in their careers, but there are women who open the door for other women. And Tracey, you are one of those women, and really want to acknowledge that, because you are known for that in the community, and you have been known for that for a long time. So thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Deborah. Thank you, Diane. You are giving back and using your talents to be able to share the voices of Japanese Americans. So I appreciate that very much.
Well, thank you, but really we're not done with you yet, Tracey. So speaking of incredible women, you talked a little bit about Irene Hirano Inoue, and the fact that you had met her via Janum, and you got to know her pretty well over the years. A lot of people have expressed a desire to reflect on Irene and talk about the sort of impact that she's had. Why don't you share with us your reflections in that regard?
Well, I think for those of us that have been lucky enough to have spent time with Irene over the years, you know that she is the ultimate connector of people. And so I love the fact that US-Japan Council focuses on people-to-people relationships, because to me, that is Irene's legacy. Everybody that you go to see or talk to about her, it's always, and my colleagues in Japan who got to know her through the Tomodachi program or through JLD, the Japanese American Leadership Delegation, always talk about Miss Irene Hirano Inoue-san, just with such a glow, because there's so much respect for the fact that she really took the time to personally get to know you, but also appreciate the fact that we can be stronger together if we have a common vision and work together to achieve that vision. And I think Tomodachi is a great example of that. Who would have guessed that after such a tragic situation, and in fact, she was in Japan when the earthquake hit. She was, and most people would be just looking at survival. No, immediately she is representing US and Japan, broadcasting from Japan, from the hotel, about what the current situation is, and then rallying Ambassador Roos and others to really get everybody to help around that. And I don't think that would have been successful without her personally reaching out to others and asking those to, how can everybody immediately says, how can we help? And that's a gift. So I admire her and I miss her tremendously.
Yeah, we all do. Well, we're just about to wrap up here, Tracey. We want to thank you very much for your time and your stories and opening up with so much information and background. Thank you so much for your time today.
My pleasure.
Thank you. And we want to also thank all of the viewers who will be watching this. The support of USJC is very, very important. And if you can tune in for our series, it's available on USJC's website and also on the YouTube channel. So thank you again very much for joining us. Thanks again.